Listen, let me tell you something real quick. One of the biggest mistakes people make in life is spending too much time worrying about what somebody else is doing. You're scrolling through social media, watching their vacations, their cars, their so-called perfect life, and now you feeling like you ain't doing enough. You're sitting there comparing your behind the scenes to somebody else's highlight reel. See, life ain't about keeping up with them. It's about keeping up with you. Your race is yours. Your goals are yours. Your timing is yours. Stop looking left, stop looking right, look straight ahead and focus on your lane. Comparison is the thief of joy. It sneaks into your mind when you least expect it, making you feel like what you have isn't enough. You could be having a perfectly good day, feeling confident about where you are in life, but the moment you start looking at someone else's journey, suddenly doubt creeps in. You start questioning yourself. You start wondering if you're doing enough, if you're moving fast enough, if you're as successful as you should be, and just like that, your joy is gone. Think about how many times you felt good about yourself until you saw someone else doing better. Maybe you were proud of the car you drive until you saw someone pull up in something newer. Maybe you were happy with your job until you saw someone post about their promotion. Maybe you were fine with your progress until you saw someone else reach their goals faster. The problem isn't that they're doing well. The problem is that you letting their success make you feel like you failing. But here's the truth. Just because someone else is winning doesn't mean you're losing. Everybody moves at their own pace. You don't know what they went through to get where they are. You don't know the sacrifices they made, the struggles they had, or the obstacles they faced. You're looking at their success, but you have no idea what's happening behind the scenes. Maybe they worked for years without anyone noticing. Maybe they failed over and over before they finally made it. Maybe they still struggle with things you don't see, but you're comparing your beginning to their middle, and that's never a fair comparison. Social media makes it worse. You open your phone and all you see are people showing off their best moments. You see the vacations, the luxury, the highlights. But you don't see the stress, the debt, the hard work, the late nights, the self-doubt. Nobody posts their struggles the way they post their wins. So when you compare your real life to someone else's filtered version, you will always feel like you're behind. But what you don't realize is that someone else is probably looking at your life and feeling the same way. Comparison will rob you of gratitude. It makes you focus on what you don't have instead of appreciating what you do have. It makes you ignore your own progress because you're too busy looking at someone else's. And when you stop being grateful, you stop being happy. It doesn't matter how much you achieve. If you're always comparing, it will never feel like enough. You'll always think you need more, that you should be further, that you should be doing what they're doing. And that mindset will steal your peace. It also takes away your focus. Instead of putting your energy into improving yourself, you waste time worrying about someone else's life. Instead of working on your own goals, you spend time watching theirs. You lose sight of what matters to you because you're too caught up in what they're doing. But here's the thing. You can't move forward while looking sideways. The more time you spend comparing, the less time you spend building. The more you focus on them, the less you focus on you. And in the end, the only person that hurts is you. Your journey is yours alone. It doesn't matter how fast someone else is moving. It doesn't matter how successful they are. It doesn't matter what they have, what they post, or what they achieve. What matters is what you're doing. What matters is your growth, your effort, your path. The only competition you should have is with the person you were yesterday. If you're improving, if you're making progress, if you're working toward your goals, that's all that matters. The moment you stop comparing and start focusing on yourself, you'll feel lighter. You'll start to appreciate your own wins, no matter how small. You'll start to see how far you've come instead of worrying about how far others are. You'll realize that success isn't a race, it's a journey. And the only way to truly enjoy it is to run it at your own pace. Your race is yours, stay in your lane. Life has a way of making you feel like you need to rush, like you need to keep up with everyone else, like if you're not moving as fast as the next person, you're somehow falling behind. But the truth is, there is no set timeline for success. Everybody has their own pace, their own journey, their own process. The moment you start worrying about what's happening in someone else's lane, you lose sight of what's happening in yours. Imagine you running a race. The only way to win is to stay focused on your own path, your own strides, your own breathing. But the moment you turn your head to see how fast someone else is running, you slow yourself down. You lose momentum. You break your rhythm, not because they were faster than you, but because you got distracted. That's exactly how life works. The people who win are the ones who focus on their own journey, not the ones looking around trying to see what everyone else is doing. Too many people waste their energy watching other people's moves instead of making their own. They spend hours scrolling through social media, checking who bought what, who achieved what, who's living what kind of life. Instead of using that time to work on themselves, they let it drain them. Instead of taking steps toward their own goals, they stand still, caught up in someone else's success. Will never create your own. The only way to move forward is to focus on your own lane. The thing about life is, no two people are on the same path. What's meant for someone else is not necessarily meant for you. What works for them might not work for you. You might see someone achieving something you want and think, why not me? But what you don't see is the path they took to get there. You don't see the late nights, the early mornings, the struggles, the sacrifices. You only see the result. And when you compare your current situation to someone else's outcome, you create unnecessary pressure on yourself. Every great achievement takes time. Some people will reach their goals early, some later. Some people will take a straight path. Others will take detours. But just because your journey looks different doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. The worst thing you can do is try to force your life to move at someone else's speed. It's like pulling a flower out of the ground because it's not growing fast enough. You're not helping it, you're destroying it. Staying in your lane means trusting your process. It means understanding that just because someone else is ahead doesn't mean you're behind. It means realizing that success is not about how fast you get there, but about making sure you actually get there. Some people rush so much trying to compete with others that they take shortcuts, and shortcuts never last. What's built too quickly often crumbles just as fast. That's why you have to focus on steady, consistent growth, your own growth. One of the biggest dangers of not staying in your lane is that it makes you lose confidence in yourself. When you're constantly looking at what everyone else is doing, you start doubting your own abilities. You start questioning if you're good enough, if you're smart enough, if you're capable enough. And once that doubt settles in, it becomes harder to move forward. But when you block out the noise and focus only on your journey, you build faith in yourself. You learn to trust your own pace. You realize that your only competition is the person you were yesterday. It's not about being the fastest. It's not about being the best in comparison to others. It's about being the best version of yourself. It's about setting goals that matter to you, putting in the work, and growing at your own speed. The only way to truly succeed is to run your own race in your own time, in your own way. Watching others won't help your success. Too many people waste valuable time observing what everyone else is doing, thinking that by watching their moves, they will somehow find their own path. But success doesn't come from observation, it comes from action. You can spend hours scrolling through social media, reading about other people's achievements, analyzing their strategies, and trying to figure out how they got there. But if you're not actively working toward your own goals, none of that will change your life. It's easy to get caught up in watching others because it feels like you're learning. You see someone making progress and you tell yourself that you're just studying their success so you can do the same. But the truth is, watching and studying are not the same as doing. You can't get fit by watching workout videos. You can't build a business by reading about entrepreneurs. You can't achieve your dreams by sitting back and observing how others are doing it. At some point, you have to put your head down and do the work. One of the biggest problems with constantly watching others is that it can create a false sense of productivity. It feels like you're making progress because you're thinking about success, but thinking isn't the same as executing. You might convince yourself that researching, following, and analyzing are necessary steps, but too often those things turn into distractions rather than preparation. You get so caught up in what everyone else is doing that you forget to take action in your own life. Another problem with watching others is that it can lead to comparison, and comparison kills motivation. The more you watch, the more you start measuring yourself against them. You see someone accomplishing what you want, and instead of being inspired, you start feeling behind. You start doubting yourself, wondering if you're even capable of achieving the same things. What started as simple observation turns into self-doubt, and before you know it, you're paralyzed by fear, feeling like you'll never catch up. The truth is, every person's journey is different. You might see someone who reached success quickly and feel frustrated that your progress is slower, but you don't know the full story. Maybe they had connections you don't have. Maybe they have resources that made their path easier. Maybe they struggled for years before they finally made it, but you only started paying attention once they succeeded. You can't base your own timeline on someone else's because their path isn't yours. Success isn't about how much you know about others. It's about how much effort you put into yourself. Instead of spending time watching others, use that time to build your own skills. If you see someone doing well in your field, don't just admire them. Figure out what specific actions you can take to improve yourself. If you want to be great at something, the only way to get there is through practice, discipline, and consistency. No amount of watching will ever replace the experience you gain from actually doing the work. Some people convince themselves that they need to wait until they have everything figured out before they start. They think they need the perfect strategy, the perfect plan, or the perfect inspiration. But perfection is an illusion, and waiting for it is just another excuse to avoid taking action. The people who succeed aren't the ones who sit back and wait. They're the ones who start before they feel ready. They take steps even when they're unsure. They learn by doing, not just by watching. Another thing to remember is that watching others too much can drain your energy. Constantly keeping up with other people's lives takes mental space. It fills your mind with unnecessary noise, distractions, and sometimes even negativity. Instead of putting that energy toward your own progress, you're spending it on things that don't actually help you move forward. Energy is limited, and if you waste it on watching others, you won't have enough left to focus on yourself. The only way to truly succeed is to take action. Reading about success won't make you successful. Watching others won't make you better. Studying people's lives won't change yours. The only thing that will ever create real progress is the work you put in every single day. Your blessings have your name on them. What's meant for you will always be for you, no matter how long it takes, no matter who else seems to be getting ahead, and no matter how uncertain your path may look right now. The problem is, too many people spend their time chasing what belongs to someone else instead of trusting that their own blessings are already set aside for them. They look at what others have, and instead of focusing on their own journey, they try to force something that was never meant for them in the first place. You can't claim someone else's success. You can't take shortcuts to get what wasn't designed for you. You can try to copy someone else's steps, mimic their approach, or follow their exact blueprint, but if it's not your blessing, it won't work the same way for you. And even if it does, it won't feel fulfilling because it wasn't aligned with your purpose. The things that truly bring joy and success in life are the things that are meant specifically for you. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking that just because someone else received their blessing, it means there's less available for them. But life doesn't work like that. There's no shortage of opportunities, no limit on success, and no cap on how much happiness exists in the world. Just because someone else wins doesn't mean you lose. Just because they receive something good doesn't mean there's less left for you. The only thing stopping you from getting what's yours is the belief that you're somehow being left out. Impatience is another thing that makes people doubt their blessings. When you see others achieving what you want, it's easy to feel like maybe it's never going to happen for you. You start questioning your timing. You start wondering if you're doing something wrong. But what you have to understand is that everyone's path unfolds at a different pace. Some people get their blessings early, some later. Some people take the long route, some take the short one. But no matter how long it takes, what's meant for you will come when the time is right. Sometimes the reason your blessings haven't arrived yet is that you're not ready for them. If you receive something too soon, before you're prepared to handle it, you might end up losing it. That's why patience and growth are so important. You have to trust that if something isn't happening right now, it's because there's still work to be done. Maybe you need more experience. Maybe you need to develop certain skills. Maybe you need to go through challenges that will strengthen you. Whatever the reason, the delay isn't denial, it's preparation. Another thing people forget is that blessings don't always look the way we expect them to. Sometimes what seems like a setback is actually something setting you up for something greater. Sometimes what looks like failure is actually redirection. When things don't go the way you plan, it's easy to feel frustrated, but you have to remember that you can't always see the full picture. What feels like a loss today might be exactly what leads you to something better tomorrow. Envy is one of the biggest things that block people from receiving their blessings. When you're too busy watching what someone else has, you're not paying attention to what's already in front of you. You're so focused on their success that you miss out on your own opportunities. But the moment you shift your mindset from comparison to gratitude, everything changes. When you start appreciating what you already have, when you start working on yourself instead of worrying about others, you create space for more blessings to come your way. Hard work and faith go hand in hand when it comes to receiving what's meant for you. You can't just sit back and wait for things to fall into place without putting in the effort. But at the same time, you can't force something that isn't meant for you. The key is to do your part. Put in the work, stay consistent, Keep improving, and then trust that what's meant for you will arrive at the right time. The people who succeed aren't always the ones who chase the hardest. They're the ones who prepare, who believe, and who stay patient. Keep your head down and grind. Too many people spend their time looking around, checking what others are doing, seeking approval, or waiting for validation instead of simply putting in the work. Success doesn't come from talking about what you're going to do. It doesn't come from watching others succeed and feeling inspired for a moment. It comes from consistent effort, day in and day out, whether people are watching or not, whether you feel motivated or not, whether you see immediate results or not. The problem with constantly looking around is that it slows you down. You lose focus when you're too busy worrying about who's ahead of you, who's watching you, or what people think about your progress. The more you worry about external opinions, the less time you have to actually work on what matters. It's easy to get caught up in distractions, scrolling through social media, worrying about trends, trying to impress people who aren't even paying attention. But none of that builds success. None of that moves you forward. The only thing that does is effort. When you keep your head down and grind, you stop looking for shortcuts. You stop expecting overnight success. You understand that real results come from long-term commitment. A lot of people want success, but very few are willing to go through the process required to get there. They want the rewards, but don't want the discipline. They want the outcome, but don't want the effort. That's why so many people give up too soon. Because they expect fast results, and when things don't happen quickly, they lose patience. Grinding means showing up even when you don't feel like it. It means doing the work even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's boring, even when nobody is cheering you on. Some people only work hard when they feel motivated. But motivation is temporary. It comes and goes. If you rely on motivation alone, you'll never be consistent. The people who win are the ones who show up regardless of how they feel. They understand that discipline beats motivation every single time. Another thing about grinding is that it builds confidence. When you put in the work consistently, you start trusting yourself. You stop questioning whether you're capable because you've already proven to yourself that you are. Confidence doesn't come from talking about success or watching others achieve it. It comes from doing. It comes from pushing yourself, improving your skills, and knowing deep down that you're putting in the effort. When you keep your head down and focus on your own work, you don't have time to doubt yourself because you're too busy moving forward. One of the biggest mistakes people make is waiting for the perfect moment to start. They think they need the right circumstances, the right timing, or the right opportunities before they can put in the effort. But waiting doesn't get you anywhere. If you're always waiting for everything to align perfectly, you'll never begin. The truth is, the perfect moment doesn't exist. You have to start where you are, with what you have, and build from there. Success doesn't happen when conditions are ideal. It happens when you make the decision to work no matter what. Grinding also means staying patient. You might not see results right away. You might feel like nothing is happening, but progress isn't always visible at first. Just like a seed growing underground before it breaks through the soil, success often happens behind the scenes before it becomes obvious to the world. The people who reach their goals are the ones who keep pushing forward even when it feels like nothing is working. They trust the process, they stay consistent, and eventually their hard work pays off. A lot of people start strong but don't finish because they expect quick wins. But the difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent or luck, it's persistence. It's the ability to keep going when things get tough, to keep improving, to keep learning, and to stay focused on the goal. It's about ignoring the distractions, blocking out the noise, and committing to the work, no matter how long it takes. Learn to clap for yourself. Too many people go through life waiting for validation, looking for someone else to recognize their efforts, waiting for applause before they believe they're doing something worthwhile. But if you spend your life depending on the approval of others, you'll always feel like you're not enough. The truth is, not everyone is going to see your progress. Not everyone is going to acknowledge your hard work, and not everyone is going to support you. That's why you have to be your own biggest cheerleader.